Hey everybody, I'm so glad to be here today. This is going to be an awesome kind of finale to this mini-series that we've been doing that has been part of actually a little bit larger of a mini-series. So we started off talking about the cycles of a market and how important it is to know which strategies to use in that cycle. And we kind of fed that into, well, there's not only the cycle of the market, but there's also the cycle of your career. And you don't need to be making move 9 when you need to be making move 2. But you should know what 9 is, right? So today we are kind of finishing this up. We've started off with how do you get from no deals to a deal, how do you get from a deal to a deal a month, and how do you get from a deal a month to multiple deals a month. And here we're gonna move into how do you get from multiple deals a month to consistently taking down 50 plus deals every year. I think it's gonna be a really good episode for you guys, so stick around with us. We'll see you on the other side. Hola.
Good morning,
How you doing, Mr. Moore?
Doing good. Been really working through figuring out the next steps of the business, so I'm excited. I'm gonna get to learn something here today.
That's awesome. This is a really valuable topic, and so I'm gonna give the same kind of disclaimer that I gave last week, which is if you are not yet to that stage where you are consistently taking deals down, I want to be very clear, right, that we are giving these bits of information that are going to sound sexy and that it is a mistake for you to try to get into this part of the business before it makes sense for you to get into this part of the business. One of the really good things that I like about, so one of the things that Daniel is very strong at, has a great strength in seeing not just like, so I talk about myself as the CEO of the company. My job, I work 2 years from now. Always. That's where my brain is 2 years from now. Daniel's like 20 years from now. Daniel has such a capacity mentally to handle steps so much further out than most people do. But that's a skill that Daniel has, and that's one of the things that he is able to bring to the table for his company. The reason why I say this is I go back to that example that we've used a bunch of times over this last several weeks, which is that a typical player, if we're going to sit down, you and me are going to play chess, which I would like to play chess with you. Do you ever play chess?
I have played chess.
We'll play chess. I'm not any good at it, but I'd like to play chess.
I was in the chess club at my alternative school.
Were you really? Nerd. No, I think that would be a lot of fun. Anyway, the normal person just kind of playing chess for fun doesn't really, we usually can think 2 to 3 steps ahead, right? That's kind of where we're at, and that makes sense for me. I don't remember what the semi-pro version is, but somebody who takes it seriously, somebody who's really into chess is probably in the 5 to 7 steps range. The grandmasters of chess, the ones that are like, they literally are called grandmaster, which, by the way, what a BA name, like that's awesome. They think 15 steps ahead of time, right? So they're always 15 steps ahead. I preface all of today's episode in saying that to say, if that grandmaster were to do step 14 and move his queen from here to there, even though that's the right move for step 14, but he's only 3 steps into his plan, he would lose that game, right? So it's very important. If you're watching live, I want you to watch live. Watch this. If you're even watching this on the replay, that's great. Actually, on the replay, I'd like for you to hit pause on this, open a new tab, and go watch whichever series is most applicable to your area, and then watch the next one and the next one until you get here.
I think.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I think a key piece to that is, and I see this happen a lot in the info sales side. So you will see somebody that's absolutely crushing it, and you will be at stage 0, and you'll try to buy that $50,000 class to get to where that person is, but by doing that, you still need to understand step 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And if you just see the business plan of step 6, you're gonna struggle to get to step 6 because you missed step 1, 2, 3, 4. And that is a key piece to building out step 6.
It absolutely is. And I'm glad that you brought up the info marketing space on that too, because that's something that you guys need to be aware of and very sensitive for your own needs is there is no, I shouldn't say there's no right decision, but there's no, gosh, what am I trying to say? Basically just reiterating that. Yeah, it's really easy. The stuff that we're gonna talk about today and some of the stuff that we talked about last week is super sexy, and I can make people spend $75,000 on a program by talking about like all this really sexy stuff. And then everybody buys the $75,000 program and nobody's truly getting success because we're luring you in with the like, oh, well, this is what it could be. And nobody's teaching you, hey, guess what? It's going to suck for the next year and a half, like we talked about in episode 1, right? Like, it's just going to suck. You're just going to spend a ton of time. You're going to screw up a lot, but there's some method behind the madness. Let's put some method there. Nobody wants to tell you about that because that's the part that's actually work. Right? We don't want to work. We just want to make money. So, again, we're going to get into some really cool stuff here to help you through that. You should know what these are so that you've got ultimate goals of like what you're working towards. Just be careful of when you're employing this kind of stuff because it can be the wrong decision at the wrong time or the right decision at the wrong time. Right?
Makes sense.
So, before we blow into that, I do want to point out this is our last episode of the year.
Well,
we got Christmas coming up and we got New Year's coming up, so I hope that you guys have good plans for that Christmas time. I do want to take a couple of minutes and kind of, step back for a second, just in the context of, hey man, we got Christmas up, we got New Year's coming up. This can be a really hard time for a lot of people. Christmas can. That can be a very hard time for people. So if this is a hard time for you, please make sure that you're reaching out to people around you and building that community. This can be a memory of lost family and that kind of stuff that can be hard. Similarly, I do want to kind of point out and separating out and just reminding everybody, this is a partnership between Creative Cash Flow and Propelio. The views held by Grant are the views held by Grant. It's not to say that they're not held by anybody else, but as I get into that next part, just making sure that you understand this is coming from me personally. But as we've had another police shooting happen, and everybody that can cause some reactions from people, and lots of people get this anti-police mentality. And I started thinking about this, and I'm like, man, what if what's your job? What's your what job have you done 9 to 5? Can you imagine if every time somebody was really bad at that job, it made the national news? What would people think about you as somebody in that job, right? What I'm getting at is that a lot of people get this and fortunately there's a lot of Back the Blue too, but a lot of people get this anti-cop thing because of the shootings, but you think about it, it's just that people just suck at jobs. People just are bad at things. People screw stuff up, and if every time somebody screwed up your job, what would people think about you?
To be fair on that side, it's like when I screw up my job, I lose some revenue. When a cop screws up on their job, someone loses their life.
No, I totally get that. But
so it's a different scale there.
No, I totally get that argument. And I've actually battled that exact argument in my head as well. But at the end of the day, yes, we have different results of our bad decisions. However, people just make bad decisions and do poor representations of that job. People are just bad at things. In general, right? So I say all that to say, thinking about it in that context, going into Christmas, there's a lot of people that have bad impressions of what Christianity is and what religion is based off of something that a person has done, right? And so I want to draw that attention to, and just understanding that if you are in that boat, it can be really easy, especially in today's America, where there's a lot of Joel Osteens, there's a lot of God hate fags, there's a lot of people that are completely bastardizing what the you don't remember the God hates fags people?
I do, but I'm just seeing the relevance to the first 15 minutes of this segment.
I know. I just want to take a minute because this is ever important, right? I know my job is to help you guys gain success, and again, this is very important to me. I don't want to take up too much time. I'm just saying, if you are in a position where you do not, where you are completely against a religion because of what somebody has done, I would encourage you to reopen your mind, reopen your cognitive side of those things, and reach out. I'd be happy to have a logical conversation with you, completely without judgment, completely without slapping you with a Bible. But if you've got questions, you've got issues or anything like that, please message me on Facebook, message me wherever you want to get a hold of me. I'd love to have that conversation, love to have coffee, love to have a real talk about that. So again, that's kind of my Christmas time message, just to make sure that we understand what Christmas is really about, and that I'm here to help. Love to talk to you guys about that. Now, stepping away from the personal side and back into the business and training side, let's get back into the real estate. Let's get back into how are we going to build a company that does several deals a month into a company that does 50 plus deals a year. It's a different place, right? Would you agree that that's kind of a good divider line for when you're going to have to start changing how you operate in order to consistently get things done?
What you're going to find is if you're just starting out, you're going to be the transaction coordinator, you're going to be the marketer, you're going to be the acquisitions agent, you're going to be the person dealing with every aspect of it. And you're going to do that. And as you start doing that, you're going to hit a point where you're doing it and not doing it well. You're dropping the ball here and there, and you're going to hit that ceiling. And that ceiling is going to be, you have now reached a deal volume that you can no longer scale from because you have met your personal limitations. And to get to that next step, it's going to really play into a lot of what Grant's talking about here. And what Grant's talking about here is things that I never achieved. Like my personal ceilings was about that 60 deals a year, and I was killing myself doing it. And I was able to do it, but it was not a business. It was absolutely terrifying to be able to do that volume almost as a solo shop. It was me and an assistant. So doing that volume was kicking my butt. But you, sir, were able to take it and create a business out of it. That's something I never have done. And I'll stand here for days and tell everybody in the world, I never created a real estate investing business. And I think there's a big differentiator between that. A business runs operations, has employees managing key aspects of it, and the owner can step away. I have never created that. So I am not the one to sit here and teach about that. But that's something you've done on multiple different sides. You did that with your what business was that? The RMLO service.
Texas Pride Lending.
Texas Pride, you did an RMLO business that you had fairly well automated. You had a solid sub-2 acquisitions and dispositions team put together, really great on that side. And right now you just scaled up a really solid national segment where you're buying nationally. So this is something that you're really good at, and I'm excited to sit here and learn from you.
That's awesome, man. Well, I will tell you, that's the drive that I have, that I think that a lot of people, they don't build a business, they build a support system, right? And that's something you've heard me say a couple of times in this series of, I want to teach you how to run a business that buys houses for you, instead of building a support system that forces you to keep buying houses, because we don't want to get you locked in to where you just have to work all the time. People didn't get into this business to make money. To buy houses. They got into the business to make money. So let's make this business make you some money. So, go ahead.
Let me play on to that, because one of the things is, you said something that I don't think many of the new people are going to want to listen to, or really slow down and have the wisdom to understand. When you get started, a lot of the things that you're about to talk about is going to sound great, but you will likely get so busy that you don't automate. And once you get to that point, you're going to end up in a pain point of, I have to slow down and stop doing 50 deals a year so that I can do 50 deals a year the right way.
Yes,
absolutely. And you need to make sure that you listen to what's happening here, because you don't want to end up putting yourself in a position of working 100-hour weeks. Because the only way to stop working 100-hour weeks is to start working 30-hour weeks, which means everything's going to hurt, and then rebuild back up where you're still working 40 hours a week, but you've got other people backing you.
Absolutely, and I think that one of the things that I said I think it was our first episode, maybe not, maybe it was our second episode on this series, was trying to get you to change your mindset, and it's going to play very heavily into what we're about to talk about here, of what he was just talking about. Stop saying, in order to buy houses, I've got to send marketing, and start saying, in order to buy houses, marketing has to be sent, right? The job has to be done. The job does not have to be done by you. Now, the important part of when you are in the stage where you're buying multiple deals a month pretty consistently, you're still going to feel like everything is just failing constantly, okay? That's gonna be normal, okay? You're going to be in this state of just complete craze for these first, I think, 3 stages, right? It's stage 1, getting to 1 deal, 2, getting to a deal a month, and 3, getting to multiple deals a month. That's natural and that's needed, because you need to see what works for your business so that you can start to replicate that even more, right? Replication, you've heard me say that word a lot. Now, when we are at this stage where you've done multiple deals a month consistently, you've really locked in a business model now. You've really locked in a way that you are able to acquire and dispose of properties, and you now have the true experience to understand what it takes to close those deals. Now, where a lot of people fail, and what Daniel is self-admittedly saying, like, look, I never went there into that next stage, is they fail to systemize that, and I hate using that word because I hate 99% of the time when people use it, it's they're like systems, and it's like a crutch, and you're spending way too much time. But at the end of the day, you gotta have systems, and by systems, you gotta have standard operating procedures and that kind of stuff. So what we're gonna talk about today in this first segment here is we wanna go over what's called an accountability chart. So the accountability chart is going to be basically your organizational chart. It shows you what job needs to be done, okay, to get to your fully scaled version. And actually, hey Ryan, can you drop off of the TV so I can get in there? It's not letting me do a connection on this, and if not, I can just describe it.
While Ryan's doing that, the accountability chart is what we're going to be talking about here. This is amazing to me because one of the things that I was really good at personally was just getting things done, but that was always getting things done myself. I was never good at getting other people to do things. So what you're discussing here with the accountability chart is a key piece to what I missed in going to the next level. I never was able to really put the details down. I fail at that as a person. I'm not good at details. So one of the things that I'd have to say is for people that are out there, get an understanding of what you are good at. Yes. I'm not good at details.
Yeah.
I suck at details. So if you're sitting here hearing this and like Grant's saying, well, let's put together an accountability chart where we document and process and create all of these types of things. If that's not your mindset, and that's Grant, you are really good at that piece. I am not. So for me as a failing business owner at that stage, I might need to accept that accountability chart is not my responsibility, and maybe work with somebody that can do that, because even to this day, with as important as I know all of this stuff is we're talking about, I fail to do it because it is by far so far outside of my realm of ability that I fall flat on my face trying to do it.
Well, and that's why it's so important to go back to this principle of should versus would, right? And we talked about that on the marketing pieces at the beginning. So many people say, what kind of marketing should I send? And I say, what kind of marketing will you send? That's the answer. Because will you drive for dollars? Will you go knock doors? Will you consistently put stamps on envelopes and send them out? Then that's the one you need to do. I think a lot of times as Americans, and I've talked about this before as well, as Americans, we've been trained a truth of nothing good comes for free and nothing good is easy. The false application of that is if something is easy, therefore it's not good, right? And that's wrong. And so what we tend to do is we tend to push and bang our head up against a wall and we say, well, Grant's really good at his business and these are the things he's doing well, so I have to mimic that and do those things well, even though I'm going to be really good at things that you're not really good at, and you're going to be really good at things that I'm not really good at, and you need to figure out how to sit yourself in the right seat for the maximum usage of your time. Now, to understand what that is, that's where this accountability chart comes in. And we recommended traction last week in segment 3 when we started talking about you limit what you are studying on real estate and you start increasing the time that you're studying on business. To get into that, traction's a big piece of that. Gary Harper, if somebody wants to tag him, he's a great resource for helping you with business modeling. He does traction training as well as his own kind of, not amended, but he's added to.
He has an amended business plan growth path thing that I don't know what to call it other than it's a badass system.
Yeah, he's good at training you how to think about business like business. So in Traction, one of the big takeaways is this accountability chart. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you our accountability chart that we built many years ago. This is not the accountability chart that we are using today because my business model today is different than it was when we built this. But the business model when we built this is going to be much closer to the business model that you guys will be using than it is for the business model that we are using. So I still think it's a better version for you to look at. So let's hop onto the screen and let's kind of dig through this here. Now, this is what it looks like. It's a family tree, okay, is basically what it boils down to. And what we are doing here is we are making sure that we understand that for our company to be fully scaled, okay, this is what the process is of creating this chart. When you are creating this chart, you're saying, for my company to be fully scaled, to do as much as I want it to possibly ever do, what employees would I need? Okay? We're talking end of the road. We're already there. We're doing everything perfectly. What employees would I need?
Okay, so you're basically telling me design my dream
design your dream company.
Okay.
Okay. So when it boils in, what you'll see that we did here, and I think I can draw on this so that we can make this, yeah, cool. So what we can see here is that every company has 3 departments. It does not matter if you are Coca-Cola or if you are Propelio or if you are one of you guys watching. Your company has 3 major departments, which is finance, which is operations, and which is sales and marketing.
Okay.
Okay? Every company has those 3. Now, the part that was the most mind-bending and beneficial thing for me to ever learn about business was this visionary and integrator relationship. Understanding that behind every great business there is a visionary and an integrator.
That I'm just like, some of the things that I have to truly take a pause here and express how grateful I am for this specific segment, because for many of the people watching right now, this may, and I don't want to speak arrogantly, this may come across, I don't know how to say this.
Yeah.
As a blue collar worker growing up, one of the things that was beat into my head is, you know, save money, do it yourself, save money, do it yourself, save money, do it yourself. We were always in that employee mindset. So when I got into business, I was always trying to save money by doing everything myself.
And one of the things that you gave as an insight to that mentality as well that I really liked how you phrased it was that you had been trained that your whole life that your value was dependent on your output, right?
Exactly. And where I'm at in business now, I am still in the transitionary period of letting that old me go, which I was hitting a ceiling with that old me.
Yep.
And now that I've breaking through that ceiling, I'm trying to learn what you're teaching us today. And what I'd like for everybody that's out there watching now today to realize is that while he is teaching this, you must still not forget about stage 0, 1, 2, and 3, because if you try and do this right out of the bat, you might end up in a little bit of a nuance of busy work. But this right here is huge to business.
Right.
Real estate investing, and I'm sorry, I'm going on a tangent here.
No, I like it. This is all valuable.
Real estate investing is the #1 path to wealth. Why is that? Because it is one of the easiest to leverage and get money to back. It is by no means, though, the true path to wealth. I would disagree and argue with anybody out there that real estate investing is not the path to wealth. It is a storage of wealth, and it is a creator of wealth. But the true path to wealth is business. When you finally understand business, these principles that Grant is going to teach in this spot right here will apply to any business. And if you can understand the principles that he is teaching right now, these principles applied to any business will create wealth. The reason that so many people choose real estate is because it's easy to leverage for someone with no asset and no backing. When you have real estate, leverage is simple. If I want to start a restaurant, leverage is not simple. This is key to growing any business. If you have not studied this, study it hard. Traction, EOS, watch what Grant Kemp's doing here. Go out and reach out to Gary Harper. He's having a class, I think, for $199.
Oh, really?
For $199, you can go to a class and he'll start talking about all this. I love what you're doing here today, man.
Yeah.
I really do.
Well, I appreciate how you put that. That is awesome. The whole, like, yeah, real estate is that, it's not. We want you to shift your business ownership as the path to wealth. You know,
You're teaching business right now.
Exactly. We're teaching you how to run a business. Now, the one thing that I will say about, like when I was saying be very careful about not doing step 15 too early, it's okay. You should from day one, if you are a visionary type, be looking for your integrator. That's cool. Right? You can get that from step 1, stage 1, because that will help you grow through it. That specific part of this is something you can put in at any stage. The reason I also push for that is that finding the right visionary and integrator relationship is very difficult. 99% of the people watching today are going to be visionaries. Most of the people that get into real estate and watch these types of things are the visionary. The visionary, and I'd like for you guys to comment here. I'd love to see these comments come in as to which one you most closely identify with.
What's a visionary? What's an integrator? How do I know?
A visionary is going to be big picture. They're going to be much more involved with like what can happen, but your personal hell is if you have to do the in the weeds work every day, every morning at 8 a.m., these 5 things need to happen for the rest of your life. You might be able to do that. You might be able to do that for 6 months. but it will fall off, okay? So visionary is big picture, creative problem solving, steering the ship, that kind of thing. The integrator is going to be much more, I beat the drum. If something needs to happen every day, it's going to get done. You've got no problem looking at a visionary's big picture and picking apart, hey, there's a problem here, there's a problem here, there's a problem here. Okay, you said you want to do this. Well, how do you answer these 5 questions, right? You give that back to the visionary. The visionary says, oh, that's a good idea. Let me answer them. And then they fix it, and then the integrator puts it into play, okay? So the integrator beats the drums, is it's a COO, a Chief Operating Officer, right? You are a operational genius. The visionary is much more of a CEO, the Chief Executive Officer. I am a textbook visionary. I am thinking 2 years ahead of time at all times, trying to solve the big problems. The big relationships come through me. If you're a visionary, which one of the 2 partners goes on lunch with that big money relationship, okay? That's typically going to be the visionary. Me and Daniel are friends. Me and the owners of the real estate clubs are friends. Me and Scott Horn, me and Eddie Speed, me and Mitch and Mike.
You're making the connections that are allowed to
I'm the connector. I'm the big guy. But then all of that is nothing if I did not have a Ronnie behind me to say, hey, Ronnie, I just got approved. I mean, we just got green lighted, and it's, nothing's real until money hits the bank. But we just got green lighted for $1.4 billion with a B from a bank to spend on wraps. I was the guy that had the meeting with the CEO and CFO, and then I turned to Ronnie and I say, here you go.
Make it happen.
Make it happen, So let's look at the screen here, and it'll actually draw out a little bit for you. And again, guys, I want you to comment. Do you align with the visionary or the integrator? Because you're going to need to get your compliment to yourself to have success. The visionary does the research and development, okay? The visionary is the one that's watching this video, figuring out, is this a strategy that I want to go down? Is this how we want to move our company? The visionary does your big relationships. The visionary is the networker, the big picture ideas, and the creative/big problem solving, okay? So when you get to an issue with the company that is so big that your operational people, that your managers, that your integrator is like, dude, I don't even know what's going on here, that is when it gets presented to the visionary. The visionary sits in a room in silence, locks the door, comes up with an answer, and then everybody goes out and does it, okay? So the visionary sits on top. Then you've got your integrator. Your integrator is going to lead, manage, and hold accountable all the people on the team. Your integrator is going to be the one that reads your financials, that looks at your profit and loss business planning. When there's a problem so big that the management team your leadership team can't solve it, that goes to your integrator first so that they can remove the obstacles and barriers between what your big idea was up here at the top and what's happening operationally down at bottom. Okay. Special projects go to the integrator. They're going to be the one that leads the meetings, and they track the trends and strategize accordingly. Okay. Then we drop down, and I'm not going to spend so much time on each operational or on each piece down here, but what you need to do is draw this tree for your own business, create a finance, an operations, and a sales and marketing, and then within each of those, you need to create the seat. Okay. You do not create a seat based around a person.
Okay.
The only seat that gets created around a person is the visionary role.
Okay.
That is the only one whose job description may be influenced by the person who's sitting in that seat.
Okay.
In this accountability chart, when we are building this out and you're creating this and you're saying, for my business to be fully scaled, in my sales and marketing department, I need somebody that is handling marketing. I need somebody who's picking up all the acquisition phones, and I need somebody who is going out on the acquisition appointments. What I didn't put in here was disposition because that wasn't necessarily in our model at the time. We were handing to realtors, but you may have a dispo team in there as well. In each of these seats, you, for your business, need to figure out what are the roles that fully scaled each of these people needs to do. Quantifiable things, okay? These are not going to be things like, get more business, right? It's going to be things like posts on Facebook, right? Okay. Whatever that might be.
All right.
So each one of these seats, you need to put the job description underneath it as to exactly the things that they need to do. This was an internal document that I didn't make this to share. So track GC, we knew what a GC did, right? The only other thing that I wanted to really make sure we were getting in there is that they were tracking the rehab budget. But anyway, You need to create this for your business. This is why I'm saying hold off until you're in this stage, because you need to see what is and is not a reasonable expectation for your business model, because it's going to be different from mine.
Okay.
Now, the important takeaway from this, and we're about to go into break, and then when we come back from break, we're going to talk about what does that mean? What does this accountability chart mean? How do you use that to hire and fire?
Okay.
The very most important part about this is that you're, again, looking at the big picture of fully scaled, what would this look like? I know it's not where we're at right now, but in my dream company, I would have an employee doing this, 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 and this, and this, and we would be able to make enough money to handle all of it, okay? Don't worry about so much the how-to on that, or so much but where's the money gonna come from? Just, hey, these are the things that need to get done. The second most important part about this is you do not, if you have staff already, if you have people on your team, you do not make any of the job descriptions in that chart based around, well, I've got this great person on acquisitions phones and she is also able to input stuff into my books, therefore I'm going to make that one of the job descriptions of my acquisition phones.
Right, because
Because that's not your ultimate. Ultimately, you need to have snipers in every area who make enough money to support themselves and every one of these employees is an investment for your company. Okay, you've got some support employees that don't necessarily it's harder to apply like an admin to what money they do for your company as it is for an acquisitions guy.
Right.
But in the end, every hire you make, and this is a mentality shift I need you to have. Every hire you make is not just a hire to support your business. Every hire you make is an investment in your company that is there to bring revenue to the entity, which ultimately makes you money. So think about it like this. As you have all of these seats here, you have job descriptions that have to be done, and each one of those seats will ultimately make you money. Okay? Now, we're going to go to break. When we come back from break, I'm going to tell you how to interpret this chart. We'll be able to field a couple of questions and that kind of thing. If you have questions, I know we're kind of going through the accountability chart a little bit quickly there. Love to answer some of those, but stick around because the important part is what do you do with this data? How do you make sure that you're making the right decisions with the data that's in front of you? So stick around, we'll be right back.
Propelio.com. What does Propelio offer? Lead generating websites, access to true MLS comps, off-market lead lists, and deal alerts. Get them all today at Propelio.com.
You want to buy more houses. Here's Dar and his wife after only 2 weeks of being my mentor student. And here's Brady after paying attention to all our online videos and attending all the live Q&As. You want to buy more houses? 3 steps. Sign up at creativecashflow.com/memberships, watch all the videos, attend the live Q&As, and then send me a photo with you and your sweet, sweet new contracts. creativecashflow.com, helping you buy more houses for one low price of only
So we've got my wonderful co-star here with me, little Tyla. She's my little princess, so she wanted to come sit on the show with me. So feel free to sit here, hang out, and let's continue the conversation.
Can we lift your shoes up so you can see your super awesome shoes?
She got her little unicorn boots.
Look at those unicorn boots. Those are the best. I need to get a pair of those.
Awesome. So.
All right. So now that we've built our accountability chart, we've not made any decisions based around what people are in our organization. We've made decisions solely based around what needs to happen for this job to be done the right way.
Okay.
The thing that you need to understand about building that accountability chart, about what this is that when you were at the beginning of your business, you said the words exactly earlier in this episode of, you're going to wear many hats, okay? So imagine that each one of these like seats that we've created a seat. Each one of those seats is a hat that somebody has to wear. So you may wear your acquisitions phone hat and your visionary hat and your, raise capital hat. Those may all be your job. And at the beginning, every one of those is your job. The key here, the reason why we are not creating the accountability chart based around a person, we're creating it based around the job, is that we are saying as a business owner strategically, this is what our company would need to look like to be most successful. And this makes it super, super easy to hire, which is one of the biggest questions that I get from a lot of people is, when do I make my first hire and who should that be?
I love that, because I'll see this question hit in Facebook groups all over the place. Who should I hire? And there is no blanket statement to that. You need to hire who's going to fill the pieces that you can't. And everybody has a role that they can fill. Some people are great at financing, bookkeeping, and operations. Other people are great at acquisitions. Other people are great at cold calls. Well, depending upon where you're failing in your business, that's who you hire, in my opinion.
That's absolutely right. So that's one of those things where it's just a maturation of business ownership to understand you can't ask a question. Watch out, watch out, watch out. She's got her foot on your mic. You can't just say blanketly, hey, you should hire an admin, you should hire this, you should hire that, because there's two answers to why you should hire. One is, what are you failing at? And one is, what do you hate doing, right? The cool part about business ownership is that if you're doing business ownership right, you only have to do the things that you want to do. That's the great part about being the boss. It's like that old Mel Brooks movie, It's Good to Be the King, right? Like,
right.
you get to do that. People have convinced themselves that they just have to do the suck, and you do for a period of time, but you should be pushing that out. So where you are in your highest and best, that's a benefit of ownership.
Where I would like to play on to that is, you said the thing of, you know what, for a while you're gonna have to deal with the suck. When you're first starting out and you have no credibility, you have no resources, you have no partnerships established, you're gonna have to do all the things you suck at.
Yeah.
The quicker you are to scale will be the faster you realize that somebody needs to do the suck for you.
Yep.
Like, you find, like, there are things that I am incredible at, and there's just a few of them. Everything else I'm horrible at. The faster you become at recognizing and accepting, I am not good at that. Humbling yourself and not forcing yourself to sit in that position of, I'm not good at that, and you allow somebody else that is good at that to do it, the faster you'll scale. And that's the simplest way of saying it. I will never manage my books. I can try. I might do it for 3 months. I might do it for 4 months. But you know what? There's somebody in the world that loves managing books.
Yep.
You find the person that loves managing books, and that is the key piece that I have found simply to scaling a business.
Yep.
All of this is really good, but the thing for my stupid mind, my simple mind, the thing that shifted for me was, somebody's out there in the world that really loves to do books.
Yep.
Just let them do it.
Absolutely. Yeah, that is a huge realization for a lot of people, is because people forget to remember that we're different. They forget to remember, that's a stupid phrase, that we all have our own skills and our own worth. So the who should I hire first is a very qualitative answer, and the thing that's so beautiful about the accountability chart is it makes a quantitative answer out of a qualitative question, right? So what you do once you have that accountability chart is you're wearing the hat of 4 or 5 seats. Well, when one of those bullet items in that seat starts to fail, that is your hire, okay? So a bullet item in the acquisitions phones might be answers every call before it rings 4 times. Okay? Now, if you, who is wearing the hat of visionary and integrator and bookkeeper and acquisitions phone and disposition, is able to perfectly juggle the books and perfectly juggle the big relationships and perfectly juggle the disposition, but you're missing, 20% of the phone calls that come in for acquisitions.
That's a problem.
That's a problem. Well, guess what? If you have your accountability chart built out, you get to bring that up every time you need to see what's going on with your company and say, which of these jobs are failing? That is the person I have to remove myself from. And the phrase that Traction uses that I love so much is called delegate and elevate. Every time you notice that there is an item failing in one of these hats, you delegate that item, or you delegate that seat. That entire seat goes to somebody else, either internally or externally, and you elevate above it so that you are now managing the person that is doing that seat. Okay? So that's the most important part about the hire, is you look at which of the items are failing and you hire that seat first. Now, the part that I will give permission to that's less strategic than that is, like I said earlier, if you just hate doing a job, even if you're able to do it, maybe that's one of the, I hated talking on the phone, especially with banks and insurance companies and all that kind of stuff. So my first hire, which made sense for the accountability chart and all that kind of stuff too, was somebody that could do that for me.
Okay.
Right? So This is something that you need to spend time on when you build your accountability chart. This is something that you need to spend time on during an annual meeting. And in our next segment, we're going to talk about our meetings, our annual, our quarterly, our weekly meetings, what the agenda of those meetings is going to look like. We're going to talk about how to track and manage each of these seats that are in the company. But that is what you need to take away from what you saw in my chart earlier. Is you saw the visionary, the integrator reports to that visionary. Even though they are commonly both owners of the company, the visionary kind of has ultimate say for the direction of the company. The integrator has ultimate say in kind of the operational aspect of what's going on there. And then that integrator is being reported to by the management, the leadership team, those department heads, and those department heads are managing the sales, managing the operations, and managing the finance, and everybody is flowing up from that. Okay. Does that all make sense?
It does. It really does. And while this topic might not be all super sexy, we just made $50,000 on a house talk. If you want to get to a point where you're making $50,000 a month consistently, you can't skip this step.
Exactly, and this is the part that really takes us. I mean, so we're modeling right now. We should be, by the end of next year, we should be doing 50 houses a month, and it's because we do stuff like this. Now, this reminds me of a part of what you said, right? Of where, you know, because this episode is, hey, we're going from multiple deals a month to 50 plus a year consistently. That's kind of the key there. So I got diagnosed with ADD about 6 months ago, which was a just earth-shatteringly good news for me. It fixed so many of the things that I thought were character flaws turned out to be symptoms. We were able to fix a lot of things going on there. But my doctor, something that she said to me that stuck with me, and she's like, you know, I deal with a lot of adult ADD, and it especially happens with like business owners, with people who are getting higher and higher up in the professional world, because especially if you're like an intelligent person, right? Like, so I bring this back to Daniel, and she was saying, especially if you're an intelligent person, you can create these kind of systems and these workarounds that can get you past all of these flaws to a certain point. And then when things start packing up so much, then you start seeing all of these systems fail, and all of these workarounds that you've built around what you've got, they start failing. And that is because you've grown past what you, one person, should ever be able to do. And that's what Daniel experienced when you were admitting in your business. You're like, yeah, man, I was doing 50, 60 a year, but I was unable to maintain that because I was doing it by sheer will and force of, I will freaking get this done. Now, the encouragement I want you guys to see is that it is humanly possible with a person and a admin to do 50 deals a year. But if you want to scale that up and you want to do a bunch of deals every year consistently, you've got to build your team and make that business work for you. And this is the strategy you use to get there.
All right.
Is there anything else that you want to put into the accountability chart and the hiring aspect before we move into our next segment, which is how to track the KPIs and systems and meetings?
I know that you're going to roll into that, and I think a key piece that we don't have a lot of time to speak on is the systems, processes, and procedures. If you're going to hire somebody, you're going to have to train them. And if you're going to train them, there needs to be a system in place.
So we talked about some groundwork for that in episodes 2 and 3. So last week and the week before, we were laying some groundwork, even maybe the week before that, some groundwork on that particular topic, because one of the things that you guys can put into play, and I want to remind you of this now, that you can put into play up front, which is going to allow you to bring that into a fruition now, is when you sit down. Because remember, our first step was when you buy your first house, spend the next day, phone off, do not disturb at a coffee house, and writing every single step out that got you to that house. And then at the end of the year, once you've done 12, because you've done one a month, taking all of those papers and comparing what are the things that happened on this. This is the groundwork for you figuring out how to build your SOP. Last week, we did talk about when you have that groundwork, understanding, and I can't remember what the name of the effect was. Ryan looked it up. There's a name for it, but documenting the 20% of the processes that make up 80% of your time or income. You've got those things there. Right here is where it's ever so important that you've got management in place. Whether that's an integrator or a department head or whatever, you have to be managing the people and understanding that the system has to be followed. Your SOP, your standard operating procedure, must be followed. And if the people that you have put in that seat are unable to do that, you either need to A, automate their job, B, manage them, right? Go to them. I really like Ronnie's method of management, which is the first time there's a mistake, you go to them and you say, hey, here's a mistake, we need to work on that. The second time you go to them and you say, hey, this is a trend that we've already talked about, this is becoming an issue. The third time you say, I can no longer trust you to do this. So we either have to remove you from the position or really come up, this is your last chance, right? So if they are unable to do your SOP because it's an unreasonable SOP, be willing to put your thought process behind adjusting that to the reality of what's needed.
Okay.
Or fixing that problem. But you have to have documentation in place because you cannot onboard without documentation, without those systems and those flow charts put into play.
All right.
So what we're going to do is we're going to hit another break. When we come back, we're going to be talking about how to manage your meetings, how to manage the meetings of these people internally, with you and your ownership, with the staff that you have, and what kind of KPIs you might need to be looking for to see if these people are going to be succeeding at their job or not. We'll be right back.
Propelio.com. What does Propelio offer? Lead generating websites, access to true MLS comps, off-market lead lists, and deal alerts. Get them all today at Propelio.com. This is Steve. Steve is a successful real estate investor. Steve is wearing glasses, so therefore you know he's a successful real estate investor. You go, Steve. Go, Steve, go. Go get those dollars. You see that blue dot? That's Steve. Just looking at houses left and right. Look at him go. Get the Propelio mobile app and drive for dollars today. All without leaving your car.
Hey
So
there,
that way we don't
guys.
lose the
Welcome
audience.
in. We are coming back in talking about the going from multiple deals a month consistently to going to 50 plus deals a year consistently. Before we get back in, I just want to point out, again, none of this stuff happens without Propelio being here, making this happen. Propelio's done a really great job of building a platform for you guys as a community through the Facebook groups, through the live events, which we've got a lot of live events coming up. We can drop into the comments where some of these live events are going to be occurring. But make sure that you're reaching out and supporting and reaching out for help and reaching out to help others, right? That is a big part of what's going on here. So if you haven't tried Propelio out before, they've got great abilities for you to have websites. They've got an excellent Driving for Dollars app that works both on Android and iPhone. And then obviously you get your comps, your leads lists, websites that can bring your leads in. It's just the tool that you need to have to get this stuff going. As we look at operationally, making these things happen for yourself, getting a lot out of your business, we have to talk about some of the non-sexy stuff, some of the business end side of things. I think this is something that people scrape by on and ignore a lot of times, and it is why people fail, is because you don't want to think about the reality of working a true business. You want to think about the sexiness of making $1 million and going out and buying that new Cybertruck, but you don't want to think about what does it truly take for me to travel and have a business that's still making money in the background. And that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about what are the legitimate action items that need to be done so that you can build that company into that position. A very, very overlooked part of that is running a good meeting, okay? People come from the corporate world. People come from a creative background. We're coming into this business and we hate meetings. We've got this impression that meetings suck, and meetings do not suck. Meetings make the world go round. And so one of the things that Gino Wickman talks about in Traction is the meeting pulse. And the idea behind that is, I don't know if you guys have had a corporate job before, but basically this meeting is scheduled and everybody an hour before the meeting is like, crap, I've got to get my stuff done. And so then they log in and they actually get all this crap done that they were supposed to get done for that meeting. And so then there's this, like, what he calls a meeting pulse. It's a pulse of work that happens just before the meeting. And the idea there is from a business owner standpoint, is I don't care. I don't care if you just had one pulse of work that got it done before our meeting. It got done before the meeting. We are results based in this business. We are looking for work to be done. So you do that. You have to have a weekly meeting with your team. You have to have a weekly meeting with your leadership that is without like the employees and stuff. and you have to have quarterly meetings and you have to have annual meetings. This is one of the most commonly overlooked because it's so businessy, it's so corporate-y, and people don't want to do that. But guess what? Do you want to make money? Business is not new. Business has been, you said it a second ago, real estate isn't the path to wealth. Business ownership is the path to wealth. So we study business ownership and we mimic the things that the Steve Jobs are doing, that the Coca-Colas are doing.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, EOS is essentially what you're speaking on here. EOS is the entrepreneurial operating system, designed and built off of Rockefeller's essential plan for running his companies. Am I correct on that?
There's a lot that he does that is referenced from the Rockefeller way.
So
yes.
anything I'm speaking on is what I've learned talking with Gary Harper, but I believe EOS was essentially the fundamentals of Rockefeller's business model. So like if Rockefeller was able to create in his time, hundreds of millions, in this times it would have been billions of billions, dollar empire off of what we're teaching here, it's very scalable. It works for a team of 5 all the way up to a team of 5,000.
Even for a team of 1. I really encourage you to take that time, even if you're a solopreneur. So our meetings are every Tuesday, right? And Ronnie and I have our same page meeting, which is between the integrator and the visionary, because visionaries have a tendency to blow and go and just run and gun and everything. And then the integrator's like kind of left in the dust, like, what's even going on? What are we even doing with this, right? So you got to have a same page meeting where you get on board with each other. You can kind of download into each other what's going on. And that lasts for an hour and a half. It starts on time and it ends on time. If you're on time, you're late. If you're early, you're on time. And at the dot, at the minute that it is supposed to end, 2:30 for us, it ends. 2:30 is when our team meeting starts. That's when the employees come in and we go over each other's rocks, which is what are the 3 to 5 big items that needed to happen for this quarter? How are you? What's happening? Let's keep track of that. We go over each other's to-do items. What are the 3 to 5 things that could get done in a week that were assigned to you last week? Where are those? Are those done, right? And it's just a simple yes or no, that kind of thing. During this, we are also going to go over a company scorecard. This is one of the really important parts when we start to talk about our KPIs. Can you explain to us what a KPI is?
It's a key
performance indicator.
Key performance indicator. So the key performance indicator, like if I'm working in real estate, I have my marketing department. Well, with my marketing department, let's say I'm doing direct mail. I am expecting X number of pieces to go out each month, and then I want to track from those pieces, how many phone calls did I receive? How many qualified appointments did I receive? How many contracts did I get? So the KPI will take you from the top down to the bottom and give you a very quick overview of what happened in that department. So instead of me sitting down for an hour with my manager of the marketing department and trying to figure out, okay, what'll happen this week, they can just give me a real quick scorecard, and those KPIs will be on there. This is how many pieces went out. This is how many phone calls were generated. This is how many contracts were, or this is how many appointments were set. This is how many contracts were received. Well, then within a matter of 15 seconds, I can look at that and be like, we're doing good. We're not doing good. This warrants further communication.
And I love the examples that you used there, because when you're building your KPIs, okay, and this is actually a really good, I mean, this right here is going to be a massive takeaway for you guys watching this episode, because this is usable in every area, no matter what stage you're in. But basically, when we're looking at KPIs, we're looking at numbers that we want to track. You need to look at leading numbers. Okay, he said how many marketing pieces went out, how many contracts came in. That is a leading number. That's a number that lets you know that if that number goes down, your revenue may be hurt months from now. So it gives you a time to correct the issue before it hits your checkbook. Okay. The mistake that people will make is say, how many closings did we have last week? Okay. Well, if you're only tracking how many closings we had last week, then by the time that number goes down, there's a lead of like 2 or 3 months before when you send out marketing to when you may have your closings coming in. Now you're 2 or 3 months away from fixing the problem, and you're 2 or 3 months in the suck, right? So you figure out your leading numbers, not your trailing numbers, the things that cause everything else to happen. The other thing to think about in your KPIs is everybody has a number. Every employee has a number. An admin's number may be the phone rings no more than 3 times. A sales guy's number may be how many offers did you send last week? But again, you do the leading numbers for the KPIs for the company, and then for individuals, make your KPIs based on the things you want. Okay? And that sounds kind of obvious. It sounds kind of like, well, duh. But here's a prime example of something that we are currently changing in our operation to adjust our KPIs, because it's surprisingly difficult to find a KPI that most accurately reflects the thing you want out of that guy sometimes. For instance, our KPI for our acquisitions guy was 20 phone calls a day. That was what he was supposed to hit. We, last week or 2 weeks ago, have shifted that to no longer is it 20 phone calls a day, it's how many contracts per day is he sending? How many offers is he sending? Because now, and see, that's a very slight change.
It's a very big change.
But it's a very big change, right? We are looking at a completely different number, because our mind was, well, if you make this many phone calls, you should send this many contracts. But we don't make money from phone calls.
Well, the difference
we make money from contracts.
Well, the difference in that KPI is the focus. Well, your initial focus was phone calls. So if I am being judged by phone calls, I can stand up and say, well, you wanted me to do 20 phone calls. Well, I made 60 phone calls today. I'm killing it. Well, if I made 60 phone calls but made 0 offers, I put out no contracts, I failed. By shifting that KPI from putting the emphasis on number of phone calls to shifting the KPI to how many contracts did you send, whereas before I may have made 60 phone calls and only sent 5 contracts, but if my new KPI is I want at least 10 contracts sent, well then you know what? I could double it up on just 20 phone calls. I could just double that up on 10 phone calls. I sent 10 contracts, 10 phone calls.
Absolutely. So the point of that being is like, this is where business ownership comes in. We started this whole thing out saying like, look, you're not buying a franchise, you're building a business. So you have to make these types of decisions. And we made the decision, hey, we want you to make this many phone calls. That's what we're going to track, because we're going to assume that that's our leading number. And then it's like, well, but do we want phone calls or do we want contracts? We want contracts. So now it's much easier for us to say, with quantitative data, that's the whole thing about KPIs, is KPIs have to be a number that is quantitative. It's not a do more, do less. It is, you need to make this many offers a day. Now we are able to track in our numbers and say, okay, his KPI is that he's supposed to send 3 offers a day, okay? And then as we figure out what that shapes into, I'll be honest, we're not there yet. I don't know what this number is going to be. We are going to have to track a reasonable rate of accomplished, how many signed contracts are you getting, okay? So we've got the KPI of how many how many offers are being made, but then we're going to have a number of, a percentage of how many offers are being signed. That will be a number that we'll look at for him. And then we're going to look at how many signed contracts are going to close, and how many, how often are we getting that contract at the number that we end up actually needing it at, right?
Now, the reason that I consider that to be an extremely important flow is because, let's say I'm a lazy employee. And if I don't have the follow-up KPIs behind it, and as a manager, I can look at that scorecard really quickly and see if this person is performing, especially if I have multiple people in that seat, because I can compare results. If I'm just a lazy employee and I'm like, oh, he wants me to send out 30 offers today, well, I'll just send out 30 BS offers, not BS, but like, obviously they're like either super low and I'll never get them, there's no competitiveness put into it. Well, the next step to that is how many of them got signed. All right, so now I can quickly say, all right, John Doe, I wanted you to be my acquisitions person, and I expect you to send out at least 30 contracts a day. That's KPI number 1, but I'm missing the follow-up data to find out what the quality of that contract was. The quality of that contract will come from 2 other things, okay? Did it get signed? Okay, so now I know that they've at least had enough negotiation to get to a signature, but now, does it get to close? And at the close, how much did that contract make? Because the quality of that contract comes from the dollar amount received. And if he's good at getting contracts signed where I make $100 net off of each one, that's not somebody I want to work with. So unless I have all 3 follow-ups, I cannot properly manage that person. But the key thing that I like about the way this system is set up is that I can manage each and every one of these people at a glance. I do not need any higher level insight into their job other than 4 data points. I can look at 4 data points and say John Doe is going to make it in this company, or John Doe needs training.
And that is totally true. And one thing that I will give you as a KPI that I can give you the number on is when we're buying remotely if you're buying remote contracts, like, everybody knows what remote buying is. The KPI on that one for contracts that fall off is 50%. So you might get 100 signed contracts, but you're probably only going to close 50. If you close 50 or more, you're doing pretty well. If you're closing fewer than 50, you're making bad offers and bad contracts, right? So that's just an example of something that you might track. So you've got to have those KPIs. To his point, what we're doing is we're making sure that every week, as an owner, you should be able to spend an hour looking at numbers and know exactly where your business sits. Okay, you can see what is my marketing and sales department doing from a numbers standpoint. We've sent out enough pieces. We're getting a great return on our, what's the word I'm looking for? How many calls you get versus how many pieces you sent? Is that just return on mailer?
Yeah.
Yeah. We're getting a great return on our mail. It's matching what we want, and then I'm going to move on to acquisitions. Okay, they're making this many offers, they're getting this many signed, they're getting this many closed. Okay, I'm going to move on to sales. We gave them this much inventory. They sold this many within 30 days, this many within 60 days, and we've got this many in the 90-day plus bucket, right? So you're managing that whole team during that meeting. Each week your meeting is an hour and a half, starts on time, ends on time, period. Each quarter you have a little bit larger of a meeting where you decide, we are going to do these 3 very important things that cannot be done in a week. You have 3 projects that cannot be done in a week, but can be done in 3 months. That is what you have to worry about over this next 3 months. In the year, you're going to do the same thing, but on your annual meeting, it's a full day, off-site, phones turned off, only with your leadership team, deciding what do we want our revenue to be for the next year. What do we want what numbers are we going to track? What are we going to do to get there? And what's our big items that are going to take more than a quarter to get done? You decide on it, and you do not stray into shiny things outside of that, period. If you get an offer given to you for something else that would make money, it waits until the next quarter, it waits until the next year. You do not stray from that, and that is how you build your traction up. That is how you see who you need to hire, how that person is doing once they've been hired, and how you can keep this trajectory going on an upward swing. So again, guys, I hope you get a lot out of this. I know that this is not, hey, here's $1 million today. I get that. But the thing is that those of you who watched through this, the encouragement that you have is that you do have a leg up on everybody else who is unwilling to take their business seriously, which is 99% of the market. 99% of the market wants to go out, buy some houses, and then get a yacht with some girls with big boobs that follow them around. That's not the reality of it. The reality of it is you got to put the work in to get the results out. And this is the kind of thing that you're going to do that with. So do you have any takes on any of this before we head out for the day?
I do not.
Perfect. All right, guys, thank you guys so much for joining us. Again, don't forget, creativecashflow.com. This is our last episode for the year. I do a weekly Q&A every Monday night. I do training on how to build your business. I do that kind of stuff with people in the real estate sector. That is what we are trying to do. We are trying to help people build businesses that buy houses for them. We've got an excellent mastermind coming up January 10th and 11th. So if you are interested in joining a mastermind, that mastermind, we are unveiling literally everything that we are doing in our marketing pieces. Ronnie's flying in from Michigan. He's going to unveil literally everything about that. And I'll tell you what, we sent out 12 campaigns in the last 60 days. Only one of them, and postcards, only one of them got less than a 1.5% return rate, and we had 3 get more than a 9.5% return rate. So if you want to learn about that, check out creativecashflow.com/memberships. Hit the apply button. It'll schedule a time on my calendar where we can meet and see if it's a good fit for both of us. I'd love to have you in there to join. Don't forget that Propelio has a lot of events coming up. They've done such a great job of pouring into this community and helping people grow. So give them that result. Give them some likes. Give them some shares. Tell people about it. Most of all, we want to see you guys successful and happy. Merry Christmas to you. Happy New Year. We will see you in 2020. Have a great rest of your day.